Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining. This is day 3 of our College Week panel discussion. Tonight we are talking about minorities attending a predominantly white school, which we titled this particular conversation, Little Fish Pond, because I'm sure I even went to a predominantly white school, so I'm sure we all had very unique experiences that we did not necessarily know we were going to have coming from our respective high schools. So what I would like to do is first introduce everyone. So I will say your name. If you can please tell me your name, grade, and what school you attend, that would be great. Or you attended, because we have some alumni, some graduates in here as well. Okay, so Miss Bianca, can you please, not Thompson, the other Bianca, can you please give us your name and your school that you attend?
I'm Bianca. I am a sophomore at Washington University in St. Louis.
Hey. Thank you. And then we have Jalen.
So my name is Jalen Peterson. I'm a sophomore at Illinois State University.
Okay, okay, we got Tamara. So Tamara, just letting you know, we are going through introductions. We just started. So now we're on to Lawrence.
Hi, I'm Lawrence, and I'm in awe at all these amazing panelists. No, I'm a junior at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York.
All right, thank you. Antavis.
Hey, you guys, I'm Antavis. I'm a graduate of University of Cincinnati.
Okay, Ania.
My name is Ania, and I'm a first year at Denison University.
Okay, Dejanay.
I'm Dejanay. I am a freshman at North Central College.
Okay, Mr. Milo.
Peace, everybody. My name is Dr. Milo Dodson. I went to the University of Notre Dame for undergrad, and then I got my PhD at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
Okay, Alexi.
Hey, everybody. I'm Alexi Irving. I went to Webster University in St. Louis, class of 2015.
Miss Portia.
My name is Portia Battle, and I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
All right.
Okay, Miss Fanny.
Good evening, I'm Fanny Medina, and I started off at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and finished off at UIC.
Okay, Mr. Andre.
I'm Andre Daniels. I graduated from Valparaiso University.
All right, Miss Erica.
Hi, I am Erica Jordan, a proud graduate of the University of Michigan. Big Ten, go blue.
Miss Tamara. You're on mute.
Tamara, you're on mute. There you go.
Am I?
You're good. You're good.
Hi, Tamara Brown, proud alumni of the University of Iowa Hawkeyes.
Okay, and then we have Antoine, who refuses to let us see his face. Antoine.
He's on mute. You're on mute.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
We hear you, we don't see you.
You want to? Okay, let me put my video on. Here we go. My name is Antoine. I'm currently a senior at Valparaiso University.
Okay, thank you. So this amazing panelist group consists of students from across our 4 classes of alumni, some staff from past and present. So I'm really excited about this diverse group. So I did a little research on everyone's universities, and so most of the schools that you guys attended, you were 6% of the overall population, right? So I know for me, 3%. So the most, at the most, you were 6% of overall population at your school. So most of us being Chicagoans, kind of coming from, somewhat more diverse, probably high schools. I know for me, that was a big culture shock getting there and being in the smaller group. So we definitely want to talk about your experience and how you navigated that new place for you. But first, we have some questions from our students. They registered prior to joining the call, and so they all had some very interesting questions about attending predominantly white schools. So one of the questions was, I guess I'll just dive right into it. How did you deal, if you had to deal, with any racial discrimination at your schools? And I'll just open it up to whoever wants to jump in. Anybody?
I could start.
Okay.
So this year I go to school in Naperville, and there were a few racist events that happened on campus and in Naperville itself. I don't know if anyone's heard about the Buffalo Wild Wings event or thing that happened. There was a family who was celebrating their child's birthday, a Black family, and a white family said they didn't want the Black family sitting next to them. So a whole bunch of managers came down and tried to make them move and like all kinds of stuff. And it was just really sad because the family just felt like I never would have thought that my kids would have had. So that was pretty annoying. And then on campus, there was some stuff about Halloween costume, including like a slave master and a Black person being a slave. And like, it was really bad. But the Black Student Association, we came together with Latin Student Association and other allies, and we just had a march on the school. And the students really, I think overall my school does a good job of trying to like minimize those kind of events. And they have like a task force and everything. So they're working really closely with students. I think they're actually trying really hard, which makes it easier to deal with, knowing that the institution is putting in enough work so that you see that they care about the safety of their students and how their students of color feel on campus.
So for me, it wasn't more of like direct racism. It's a lot of like unconscious racism and like slurs that may be said. And the way that like I handled it, and similar like minorities on campus, is that they make sure the people that like say these things like are aware of what they're saying, and just tell them like, hey, like you may think it was a joke, something like that, but from the background of where like the words they may say may come from, other people may see it as an insult or racism and things like that. And then the campus does a good job of making sure like everyone's voice is heard, and like instances like that come up. There are like different, we have an office of multicultural programs where they try to make it aware and known of like different things that can affect different people, and also just events to educate the community about different things. So like I haven't had like I said, any direct racism or anything that has occurred or anything, but it was just more of things that may be like unconscious racism that per se.
I guess I'll jump in. So previously I went to a school called St. Norbert College, which is super small. And I was probably, I think it was 1% or something like that, 1 or 2. So our racism, it was like our Black student union was literally made up of 13 people. So when I was kind of in the midst of some things on the weekend, you know how weekends can get, and some racial things were said towards my group of friends and, you know, things like that. And I kind of had to deal with it a little bit differently because of the fact that we were so outnumbered. So we kind of had to be the bigger person in that situation. So we had to literally not say anything, and that's probably like the hardest part, you know, just because of the fact that you have so many emotions going on. You have so many things going through your head at one time, you know. It's like, all right, I need to say this or whatever, you know what I'm saying, get this off my chest, but you can't. So we had to literally be mute, and that was probably like one of the hardest things that I've ever had to go through.
I'd like to ask a question. Is that okay? Like, are we just going in and out, Tiff?
A
Yeah.
living room family kind of setting. So,
So when you say you felt like you had to be mute, right? And I get it was a lack of representation, but was it a fear of safety or retaliation? Like, what was going through your head when you felt like you should not speak up?
So in the moment we did speak up, you know, like, okay, I'm not that, and this is we confronted the moment. But when police and things like that were involved, you kind of see that you're outnumbered more than what you think you are. So then I guess, yes, the fear of safety and whatever repercussions can be made, that was a fear. So that's why we felt like we had to, you know, just like, okay, just let that go over our head and continue on with the day.
Andre, were you going to share something?
So I was going to piggyback off of what Antoine was saying, because it's very interesting, because to hear his experience at Valparaiso versus what mine was, it's good to see that there's progress, because one of the reasons why the Multicultural Center is located where it is inside and around campus, because originally it used to get vandalized and we were so far away from campus. Like, all the Black people had to meet almost like 10 minutes away from campus, and people still found ways to vandalize the buildings. We used to have to deal with a lot of stuff dealing with the police department over there. They used to harass us all the time, and they didn't like us walking through different neighborhoods. Even I remember one incident, my friend, he had a flat tire in the middle of the night, and I came over to try to help him, and the police had told us both to get out of there and we need to go home. And we were like, he just got a flat. And then they said, they started threatening us and we had to leave his car just right there in the middle of the street. And so there was a lot of, unfortunately, like, there was a lot of tension. And I think this was around 2004 to about 2008 when I was going in. But to hear that there's been progress and that they have been addressing a lot of those issues is reassuring. And to know that some of the fights that we were trying to fight back then, it seemed like they're starting to hear some of those problems and the issues that we had. So, which goes off to the other point, is like, always still voice your opinion. Because at first we didn't know we were being heard at all. But we still tried to say what we could say and, you know, at least stand together with our unity. And to know that, and I'm hearing from Antoine that his experience is a lot different than mine, is really comforting to know that.
All right, so I just wanted to get it out the way because that was a reoccurring question for our students. So I know that may be a concern when looking at schools. So that is out the way now, but can we all share why you chose the school you decided to attend? What went into making that decision, and are you happy with the decision you made?
For me, it used to be like a very important thing when it came to narrowing down what school I would attend. It came down to money, and I got the Posse scholarship, so that took out a lot anyway, and then continually applied to scholarships like outside of them, but it went based off money. But I'm actually proud with the decision I made, because I know for me personally, I don't like being in a big classroom. I like knowing my teachers and having those relationships there, because I know if I need help, I expect to go to you, and I expect for you to be available for me to go to. And I don't know, for me, for my school, like, it's a lot of resources that you would be surprised that a small school has just based off the like student population, but I really appreciate just what's there for me, especially being a minority. I would think that it would be hard for me to get those resources available, but somehow it worked out. And it's completely different from the city. I'm literally in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, but I'm close to Columbus, but not that close. So it's a different experience.
For me, definitely money, but also, so my father lived in Ohio, and so I was able to get I was able to receive in-state tuition going to Cincinnati. And so going from Chicago to Cincinnati, while there was a huge difference, I felt like being in Ohio, they were like 10 years behind everything we were doing in Chicago already. But just attending a PWI, Cincinnati was also like the top 10 business school for accounting, which was huge for me because I majored in accounting. But like I said, finding an institution that fit my budget was like the primary focus for me. So.
For me,
oh, go ahead,
I
Andrew.
kind of went off. Oh, you want to go?
No, man, you go right ahead.
Right. Appreciate it. So for me, it was more based off of the quality of education I thought I would get, as well as the size of the school. So because I visited like U of I and Michigan, things like that, and like they have good programs, but they were just too big for me. And like I'm more of a introvert. I like being in a small setting, and so that kind of like eliminated those choices. And then just being at a smaller school, you get to build more connections with the teachers, and also one thing that I learned too is that compared to like bigger schools, the small schools are able to go more in depth with the like the lectures and things like that, and have time to like stop in class to ask questions and explain stuff further. And so my main focus was just getting a good education and making sure that I'll be able to talk to professors when I need to. And ultimately, I am excited and happy with the decision I made to come here to Valpo, because I had a good time here, made a lot of connections, and had a lot of great opportunities here.
So similar to what's been said, I chose Notre Dame, coming from all the way from Los Angeles to the middle of nowhere, Indiana, because of the 90% scholarship that I was able to receive. And I think I was the first of my family to be able to go to college. So I didn't really know what the heck I was getting myself into. But in addition to the financial support, I knew that from speaking with a couple students who attended there prior, I was going to have the emotional support. And being a young Black man, like I said, in the home state of the KKK, I was going to need that. And so what was important for me was to reach out to students ahead of time to see what their experience was like and how I might be able to make connections and find allies ahead of time. So in addition to that, obviously the psychology major that I chose was really helpful, being able to do research, being able to set myself up to go to grad school. But again, I think it's more about identifying the people and the different offices and departments ahead of time that offer support.
I'll go. So I picked U of I because one, it was far, it was away from home, but it was still close enough to like come home easily if I was homesick or if I needed to, just a 2-hour car ride away. And then also like staying in state, I was able to get more money. So of course I came out having like less debt, no out of state fees or anything like that, which made me happy. But ultimately, I would have preferred, like now that I'm older and I go back and I look at it, if I could do it again, I would have picked an HBCU. And I say that because I feel like, and this is my opinion, I feel like they prepare you a little better. So in some ways, I feel like I was prepared for the workforce because I was at a predominantly white institution. I'm not going to be working, you know, in a field with mostly Black people. It's going to be diverse. But on the other hand, I feel like as far as like internships and things of that nature, like when they go to HBCUs, you know, of course they're there picking back Black kids, but when they came to U of I, it was very difficult to compete for those internships and things of that nature. Like I look at my friends who I graduated from high school with, everybody had internship with top companies and came out working for those companies. We were just not pushed in that direction at my school, and I kind of wish I was. So that's like one of the, also at U of I, we had huge class sizes. We did have like TA parts to our classes, but like we had lecture hall classes. So you really had to like go to office hours and just do things to be known by your professors. Whereas, you know, usually at some HBCUs or most of them, they have smaller class sizes and it's more intimate. So, but I really, really like U of I. If I had to choose a PWI, then I enjoyed the school, but if I could do it again, I would have picked an HBCU.
So that is actually a question one of the students had. As a minority, did you feel it was more beneficial to attend a non-HBCU? Okay. Sorry, were you able to hear that? I know there was some feedback. Okay.
Yes, we heard it. Mm-hmm.
I'll weigh in to answer that question, Tiffany. I think, honestly, it's 50-50. It's hard to know, right? Because I went to a predominantly white institution, so I can only speak to that experience. I think it's difficult to say if it would have been better going to an HBCU or not. But sort of going back to the last question as well, I'm actually very happy with selecting the University of Iowa. And my reason, especially, you know, Iowa people are always like, really, what? And I say I had the absolute best time of my life, the University of Iowa. And to this day, lifelong friends. I pledged Delta there. Even in this quarantine, my sorority sisters were all checking on each other. And, you know, we created a bond that I think is unique to being at an unique to being at a predominantly white school because there was such a small number of us. And I think it was Dejana or someone talked about the Black Student Union, you know, being a resource. That was really our base. Like once we got there and got plugged in with the Black Student Union, we kind of created our own little world. And I think some of the benefits for us was that we had the access and resources of what a major institution could provide, a Big Ten college, but still at the same time, we created a family environment for ourselves that, you know, I don't want to say there wasn't racial tension, perhaps, but nothing that I feel like we were directly impacted. By we, I mean like my class or the groups that was there. So again, I think it's difficult to say if one is better or not, but I do think that if you choose a predominantly white university, you still want to get into the right network. You still want to get into a family network with the Black students. I think is super important. That level of support of each other. I mean, not only does it get you through those 4 years, but like I said, that's lifetime.
I agree. My experience, I went to the University of Chicago, and while it's in the middle of Chicago, it was super diverse. So it wasn't necessarily just predominantly white, but it was super diverse, even with the Black population still being probably one of the smallest ones there. But we did have like Greek life, and we had a Black student union that I could tap into to still feel connected to my campus as well.
This is Erica. I'd like to chime in. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I have a little bit different of experience. I applied to 10 HBCUs. I went on all of the HBCU tours, and I was just clear that I was going to Howard University. And my dad actually asked for me to just take a look and see what all of the options were. And I remember I went to the University of Wisconsin, and I actually got a full ride there. And it just didn't feel right with my spirit. So I was like, okay, that's not it. And then I went to the University of Michigan, or he asked me to go to the University of Michigan and just take a look. And I was like, Dad, chill out. I'm going to Howard, like, relax. And the fact of the matter is I walked onto the campus of University of Michigan, and I fell in love. The energy just spoke to me. And I don't know how to tell you to figure that out for yourself, but I would definitely say that you should just go and visit the institution to see if it feels right, get a chance to talk to some of the people that are there, and find out what their experiences are, but also try to figure out like what type of person are you? Do you thrive in a large environment, or do you need more hand-holding? And those are questions that I don't necessarily know that I asked myself, but I just figured out that I was a self-starter, right? I was a straight A student, and so I didn't need as much hand-holding. But looking back, I do kind of wish that I would have considered the study abroad option. I found out about that in my last year of college, that I could have actually taken a semester and studied abroad in another country, or even at an HBCU. So I would definitely recommend exploring your options, whether you make the decision to go with a predominantly white institution or not. I think that if it's something that kind of is where you want to have the best of both worlds, one of the things to consider is absolutely studying a semester at another institution.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that. I'm hearing a lot of people saying, like, just understanding yourself. It was huge that I took myself away from anything remotely close to what I was going to experience in Chicago. Just growing up on the South Side, it was just like, if I had me and my dudes all in one school, all at one school, there was a great chance that we weren't going to graduate. And so I felt like me going to a HBCU would have been remotely close to that. And so me going to a PWI put me in a different setting, and it actually challenged me to get out there and network with people that I didn't typically come in contact with throughout, my school days up to that point. So like challenging myself and understanding that, in this world, a lot of success is built on like the people you know. And so me going to a PWI, it pushed me to go out and network and, go out and talk to people who I wouldn't typically go out and, have a conversation with, go out and even if I didn't join a particular group, I was still there just to see, like what was their discussions like what were some of the things they were talking about, and, then taking that back to like my dorm room or, to my apartment and like, having a conversation with some of my guys and, just like getting their perspective. I had a story where one of my dudes, he grew up in Lima, Ohio. And so our experience was different. For fun, they tip cows, right? And exactly. And so like, but his dad was a doctor, and so like they lived in this huge crib. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, bought a new Cadillac truck every other year. And my mom, like we living on food stamps. And so like we had two different perspectives, and like we argued literally for weeks and weeks and weeks, like who had it worse growing up. And he swore up and down that like coming from like that background where like his dad was the breadwinner and he didn't have anything to worry about, that life was harder for him than it was for me, So like getting that perspective, I think like going to a HBCU, I would have been able to relate to a lot of more people that was like, yeah, dude, we from the hood, we grew up around gunshots and we played ball to get out. And, like, so having that different perspective was important, and understanding like who you are and what you need to thrive is important.
Yeah, like for me personally, I can add on to that. I'm surrounded at my school by a lot of legacy kids, I should say, where they just, come off money, and then you're like, okay, like I've been in contact with people like say like, oh yeah, I mean, my dad paid for it, like no problem. And sometimes I just really make them like, okay, like good life. But I've had a lot of conversations with people I never thought I would talk to as well. Like at my school, it's a fair amount of international students, and I didn't think I would be friends with somebody from Saudi Arabia and things in that manner. It just keeps you thinking. And then with alumni, like for the attendees on here now, like understand like your school's alumni like foundation, because I've met some of the most powerful people in the world at my school, and I didn't even know they went there. And, you just build those relationships. So I'm really thankful for that on my behalf of attending a PWI, because we do have a lot of white people that are very powerful. Not saying that all white people are racist, but it's never an issue to build those relationships with those types of people.
I wanted to jump in terms of attending a school that's specifically for the creative arts. So I had gotten a full scholarship to Iowa State, and I was so stubborn, and I'm like, no, I want to go to the Art Institute and art. One thing I didn't realize, I was in the minority, of course, being a Latina. African Americans and Latinas were in the minority, mostly Asian and Caucasian. But I didn't realize the level of non-inclusivity. So there were no sports, there were no sororities, there were no anything that really builds pride and unity like in a regular university. And I didn't even take that into consideration. So in terms of feeling like I belonged, again, I was only there for 2 years. I never felt like I belonged. I never felt the opportunity. I mean, there was, Latino groups and African American groups and specific clubs, but I never felt like I truly had any opportunity to join in and get in the spirit of the institution that I was attending. I didn't even realize what I was missing out on until I started going to like public colleges and then eventually into UIC, where I realized, wow, people are engaging and building solidarity and having these moments and these, they're actually being able to feel like, or being offered opportunities to feel like they're part of the institution that they're paying towards. Not just part of it, but like, gaining pride in this is where I go and this is what we're about and this is how we are when we're united. And so that was something that in hindsight, it was really clear, but as an 18-year-old picking institution of higher learning and going to an art school, that I didn't realize that was completely lacking or that I would even yearn for that.
To add on, my school, I think what's important is to know that it's okay to ask in-depth questions. So one thing that led me to North Central was the honors program that was there. And of course, being a minority, I was interested in how many of us were actually in the program. And I kind of felt like I was lied to so that I can join the program, because I got there and there's an honors community. And in the community, it's a little more expensive to live in, but including myself, out of 80 kids, there are only 2 Black people that live there. And in total, there are about 4, including me, that are in the program. It was kind of frustrating because they told me that there was more, and apparently there's not. And I think just make sure when you go to PWIs, don't be afraid to ask them things. But for me, I guess one thing that made it easy to stay and actually still fall in love with the school was that I decided that I would change that, and I became an RA. So next year I'm going to be an RA, because there are only 2 of us in the building, and neither one of us, or were RAs. And I just wanted, and for that purpose, for the honors program, I was the only Black student there. And it scared me because I was like, okay, I know there are more Black students at the school, so I'm seeing that I'm probably going to be the only one in this program. And it's kind of scary. So I just decided that, even though this is probably going to be an obstacle for this year, I can do something about that. So just don't, if you end up going to visit a PWI and you see that there are not many people like you, which is very likely, go in there with the mindset of I'm going to change that, because it's been very beneficial. The RA program is very beneficial when most of them pay for your room and board for the year. So it's just going there with the mindset of I can do something about it, which has really helped me throughout this entire first 2 semesters, well, semester and a half, because we're no longer on campus, but yeah. So.
One thing that was not touched on, there's a bunch of factors that that kind of pushed me to go to Webster University. One being finances, having emotional stability, having a safe space where I feel like I am welcomed in like a commuter's room or a commuter's building, as well as having campuses all around the world, which was great. But one thing was having faculty members that were of color, because those were the ones that really stuck their neck out for me. They gave me my first on-campus job. They pulled out scholarships from nowhere for me. And I think that was definitely a big part that helped me survive and be successful in the college, PWI setting.
That's actually a question from the students. What methods did you use to feel heard, recognized, and validated while you were there? I know some of you kind of touched on it a little bit about what you did, but does anybody else have any suggestions on what made you feel comfortable at your campuses?
I just wanted to add to what Alexi was saying about finding that mentor, that person of color. I am still in contact with my mentor from Iowa today, and I've been gone for some years. But I really encourage the students to find that mentor. If it's someone of color, ideally, but even if it's not, finding that mentor is super, super helpful. But specifically at white institutions, it doesn't have to even be an instructor or a counselor that's even in your school, even in your, your department, because there's like this understanding among the faculty that retention is a big deal. So they all really want to help you. You can reach out to almost anyone. And if you're, just to build a relationship, and they're more than willing to help you. So I super encourage that. And then I just wanted to add one more thing to what Fanny was saying about getting involved in just the campus life. And like, absolutely, that's a huge part. I mean, there's nothing like football Saturdays in Iowa City. I mean, just the fun is, you can't even speak on it. And don't be afraid to, because it's all white people or majority white people, oh, we're not going to go. Well, you're going to miss out on some good times. So get with your crew and go and make, the best of it. You belong, feel like you belong, walk in like you belong, and you will have some really good times.
Yeah, I really love what. Oh, go ahead, Bianca. I'll jump in next.
Sorry. Yeah, I would definitely echo that, and also say, like, placing myself in situations that were difficult to be in, but like also allow myself to grow in a way that I could like be beneficial to other Black girls that come in after me. So like, for example, I'm in an a cappella group, and it's an all-female a cappella group, and I am one of two brown girls in the group. And I feel like just doing that kind of puts me out there in the face of WashU, because not a lot of girls like me would go into it like a predominantly white group when it's only like 15 of us. But I feel like that has definitely helped me push our voice forward, and also just help network, but also make other girls like me comfortable as well.
Yeah, I was going to add to Tamer's point from earlier about creating a sense of, validation, but also reminding myself often that I belong to be at Notre Dame. Because I remember I would walk across campus, and we have that internal dialogue that goes on, and mine would always be like, dang, I don't belong here. I don't deserve to be here. And that imposter syndrome was very, very real. And so I actually really needed to almost force myself to remind myself, like, no, you belong here. And once I was reminding myself of that, that allowed me to connect with other students, to express myself, to be vulnerable that way, and then also finding different faculty and staff. So at Notre Dame, there's a Black men's group called Wabruta, and we met every Sunday to be able to express, to laugh, to cry, and just let that out. Obviously, also, the last thing I'll say here now as a psychologist, to get that sense of validation and to get that emotional support, like most colleges and universities will have a counseling center. They will have some options for therapy, even if that's off campus in the community. So when you find yourself having the same type of concern over and over again, whether that's anxiety, depression, or even race-related stress, be able to feel good about pursuing therapy as a really, really viable option.
I want to add on to that, because I think that's really important. That's something that I feel like I didn't do enough of this past year. Imposter syndrome was really bad for me. And I was also one of the youngest students in a lot of my classes, which didn't help, on top of being one of the only Black students. So on campus. they're there for a reason. You're paying for them. So don't, go there and not take advantage of those. Like, for example, my school has therapy dog Thursday days. People from the neighborhood in Naperville bring in their dogs into our gyms, and we just go in there and just rub on all the dogs and stuff. And we have amazing counseling services and all of that. So I think don't go throughout the semester thinking I have to do this alone. If you're feeling like, I don't belong here, like you said, those thoughts are constantly coming through your mind, say something to someone because they're there for a reason. Nine times out of 10, the resource is there and you're definitely paying for it. So take advantage of it.
And join the clubs or organizations that relate to your interests. Like me personally, I don't want to say I don't really like people, but I don't really like people in my face, or if I don't know you, I'm not the type of person that's going to be like, oh yeah, my name is such and such, I'm from here, and I'm going to just tell you my whole life story. But for me, the Black Student Union at my school kept me sane, because at first moving in, I was like, I don't see no buildings. I'm on a hill. All I see is trees. I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I had to remember that there are people out here like me that come from big cities, but those are the type of people that you can end up relying on, especially when it comes time. But when you need help with academics, they probably taking the same class as you, or you already took it, or when you just need somebody to talk to, or just knowing that you always got them there, that's a big thing. So.
I would say, did you have another question? Oh, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, I would say something that helped me a lot was my mentality going in, not making excuses for myself. So I think it's very easy to start blaming, it's just the circumstances that you're in and a lot of things that's going on around you, on just a lot of things that are excuses. And that's not to say it's a difference between context behind things and your history and reality of your situations versus excuses that you make for yourself. And so with that, understanding I'm at an Ivy League institution with Cornell, and it's very easy. A lot of people just sit up and think oh, the name's gonna get me where I need to go. I'm good. And me understanding I'm a Black man in America, that's not enough, and I need credentials behind that. I need the skill set. So it was, again, just constantly telling myself, don't make excuses. So what? You weren't exposed to this in high school. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have the same resources as everyone, but now you're in a space where you, by virtue of being a student in the same institution, you have just as many resources. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to change that? So just more of a what now, and how am I going to change my circumstance mentality?
Okay, we're good on that one. So we're at 7:50, so we're getting really close to wrapping up. One final question that a student had was, do you feel like the curriculum you received at your school would be any different from the curriculum a student would receive at an HBCU?
This is Erica. I'll chime in here. I was a biology pre-med major for the first, second, and third year of the University of Michigan. As coming from high school, being a straight A student, I thought I was smart and realized that I was at an institution with the smartest people in the nation. And just to kind of talk about the last question as well, when I realized I wasn't getting the grades that I was used to getting, I started to bury myself even further into my schoolwork, and I did not create much of a work-life balance at school. So attending some of the events that were on Saturday that Tamara talked about, I was in the library listen, I got to get this together. I would say that for the most part, the curriculum is probably the same or similar across the board. I think that the approach, the teaching approach, the size of the class is the factor that is the differentiator maybe between one university and the next. But yeah, I would definitely say just ensuring, at the end of the day, the goal is to graduate, right? And to pick an institution that fits and feels right to you. but the curriculum is most likely the same. The benefit that I didn't get a chance to say before is that University of Michigan is a phenomenal institution, but it is a brand. It came with, you know, the Fab Five. Our mayor of Chicago is a alumni of University of Michigan. And so that was a benefit that I did not think of going into, but it absolutely gives you a factor that people are like, oh, really? You went to the University of Michigan and you graduated. That's a big deal. So when selecting your college, it is important to make sure that you're having a great experience and getting the same level of education while you're in school, but also start to think about what it's going to do for you after school. What are the networks that you can pipe into and tap into after school? What are some of the internships and opportunities that are made available, and how can you be aligned with that? But overall, at the end of the day, you want to ensure that the school that you attend has the proper accreditation. That's important as well, because I ran into a school that I wanted to attend that I didn't really understand what that meant until my dad was like, yeah, no, you're not going to that school because they're not accredited. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not going. So no, I would say most likely the curriculum is similar, maybe not the same, but do your research before you actually make a decision.
RateMyProfessors.com is your best friend, because I really agree with the approach being different, because I had some very interesting professors this semester, and you know, I already can change classes or whatever, but you know, that's a lot of work, so it's whatever. But going on RateMyProfessors.com while you're selecting your classes and registering, it helps a lot because you get an idea of what kind of professor you're going to have, their approach to teaching, how they grade stuff, if they're a hard grader, if they're, you know, understanding or not. So I think that's something a lot of students don't know about when they're going into it, or think it's not important. Because I didn't think it was important until this semester. It really is. But yeah, the approach will probably be different. And you just have to be patient and mature. Sometimes you have very ignorant professors. I had some this semester, departments, but Rate My Professor is definitely your best friend. So.
Yeah, something I would recommend, like if you're going on college tours, or if you have a sibling that's currently in college, I would recommend, like, if you're interested in their university, like going to their university and trying to go to like their lectures and like see if you would be acclimated well to the scene. I know at WashU specifically, like we have family weekend and we have like parents in the classroom, siblings in the classroom. And I think that type of experience can also give you kind of an insight into the institution and see like how some professors approach teaching the material. And then that way you can make an even better decision on what university you want to attend.
Something else to consider, in addition to seeing who's teaching, you can also take a look at like some of the published courses that have been online. And with that, you know, I was a psychology major, but learning more about my history as a Black man in America, I took on a minor in Africana Studies. So you can be any major, you can have engineering, and you can add on a minor if that's something that's important for you. And even at a PWI like University of Notre Dame, it was like 87% that W, all that whiteness there. There was still a lot of Blackness that I connected to, and Blackness and African history that I learned about. So I think, you know, obviously that's going to look different at some HBCUs, but nonetheless, there's still that really strong option.
I think that's a good point on the major difference between an HBCU and a PWI is the study of your heritage, is Black studies. My senior year, they first came up with this class on, I think, Black writers. And everybody flocked to this class because that was the first class that we were able to take that focused on African Americans, which was really significant. And even white people came and joined it. So that was important.
I guess I'll chime in on this is because my project, or at least my major, was specifically media. So it was a TV, radio major. So a lot of the project that they had us doing were going out into the field, dealing with different companies within the neighborhoods. And so we had to definitely tailor what we were doing to better fit the community or the voice that they wanted us to speak in. And so, but learning how to navigate both waters was something that I wouldn't have got had I not attended a PWI. And it also helped me with just understanding at least how to use these different narratives to tell the same story. So still have my voice heard within this, like, all right, how can I still tell it my way? How can I still find my voice? How can I still be heard? How can I still be seen? And not lose my identity? Because that was another thing that we were really kind of concerned about, was like, man, I still want to make sure that when I leave here, I still feel like me. I don't want to lose me being here and being taught all these different things. And so it made me appreciate, one, my culture more, but two, how to make sure that I still maintain that same vibe.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are just about to hit 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. So before we leave, you guys gave some really great advice, but did anybody want to share any last comments before we get off? Anything to the students who are listening in?
This is Erica. I absolutely do. I think the biggest thing to take away, regardless of what institution that you go to, is to figure out what your purpose is. In this time of Corona and quarantined time, I think that it would behoove us all to really reconsider why we're here, why God has us here, and figure out how to align your major to your God-given purpose. As I mentioned, I majored in biology pre-med up to my junior year, and it was because I didn't really take time to figure out what it is that I really wanted to do and be. I just was kind of going through the motions of the things that I'd done. So I always recommend, whenever I talk to students, I took the Myers-Briggs test. You can go online. I believe they have a free version of it. It's a personality and assessment interest test. And it really gave me an opportunity to figure out and explore some things that I really wasn't even considering. After taking the test, I changed my major to organizational and industrial psychology, and I fell in love. It's where I belonged. And so I always say, don't wait till your senior year to figure out why you're there. If you can do that work now before you even get to college, I would totally recommend you doing that today.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
In all my STEM majors, or the hard majors, quote unquote, they label them hard, do not let anybody tell you cannot major in that major. I've been told before, oh, I don't know why you're majoring in biology if you're gonna fail. Don't even take that, because you'll be the one getting the B in a class while everybody else is getting C's and D's, because D's are considered passing at my university. Do not let anybody tell you can't major in anything. If you have a passion for it, it may be hard, but then you'll ultimately get it. So just follow through with it.
Woo, child. There are numerous times where I've heard, you shouldn't major in math, you shouldn't major in computer science, you shouldn't. And I feel like you should be able to do what's for you. It's your life. You're the one going to college. Even if you may not be the one paying for it, you may not have a scholarship, you're still the one working towards the degree. So you should be able to control what you do, especially, if it's something that you're really passionate about. You shouldn't be steered away from that for outside reasons. So I think I would definitely suggest, something that I would tell my younger self is to just focus on you and what you want to do and how you want to impact the world. And yeah.
two real quick things. Number one, it is absolutely okay to attend a community college to knock out basic classes and then spend that big money on a really good school that focuses on what it is you want to major in. Number two, do your absolute best to not take out loans. I would consider myself relatively intelligent. And I was like, I'm taking out all the loans. And I know I'm going to have a good job because I'm smart and I'm going to be able to pay them back. Sure, I'm not going to, lo and behold, years and years later, I'm paying a lot in loans. And just as Black and brown people, that we already have so many hurdles financially to overcome, that if you can just make sure you do your absolute best to not take out as many loans as you can, because it will catch up later and it will prevent you from buying a home later, or it may prevent you from buying a car where you get a good interest rate because you defaulted on your loans at some point. It will all catch up to you later. And don't get overly confident with your intelligence or your ability to be like to network and think I'll get a job and I'll do great and I'll be able to pay this back with the quicks. Things happen, life happens. And I'm just speaking from experience. If I wasn't paying back these loans right now, I would be able to put money in a savings every month and be comfortable, right? But because of the way everything panned out in life, and it happens, but it's definitely something that it's a challenge now, and I'm grappling with a family and with a mortgage and just with loans. So I'm not saying it's it's very realistic to be able to get grants and scholarships and all of that, full rides. But if you can at all, try and avoid taking out loans as much as possible.
I would also say do summer programs. That's the road to college starts now. It starts while you're in high school. So that was something I did, especially my junior year. I actually was able to do 2 different programs. So those are great experiences to get on the campus, experience the campus culture, experience the rigor, and really see if that institution is for you. Also, everything is what you make it. The schools are going to try to sell you all these statistics. We've heard the stories and numbers, but at the end of the day, if you don't go out there and you don't grind, build those relationships, and not settle, not make excuses for yourself, then you're not going to get it. But I'm confident everybody will. So.
And then lastly, to add on, talk to financial aid if you feel like your package is not good enough, because 9 times out of 10, they will try to reason with you. But just know that is an option that you have. I did that and it saved me. They definitely cut my amount in half sitting on their behind. So they have the money. Don't be afraid to go to them about it. And on a more positive note, just remember that you're a gem, and whatever you bring to the table, the campus is more than blessed to have you there. So, recognize your power, your beauty, your talent. Go on campus and do what you got to do. So, yeah.
I would also add too, it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want your major to be going in. You can take your first semester figuring out what you actually like, and don't feel like if you made a decision you're stuck to that particular major or things like that. So yeah, try to find what you really are passionate about, and don't go for something just because you think they made good money or something of that nature. Just find what you're truly passionate about and go for that. And if you don't know right now, don't feel stressed and overwhelmed. It's okay. You'll have time to learn what you want to do and what you like, and it's okay to change your major or something like that as well.
It's absolutely okay to change your major. I think I love that, because what's most helpful is to be guided by our values and our interests, and there's multiple pathways to pursue those values and interests. So as Erica pointed out, she started one completely different major and ended up with another. So being able to know that it's okay to take an extra semester, to take an extra year if you've needed to adjust that major, and again, pursue things based off of your values and your interests, instead of the external voices, the external forces telling you, forcing all those expectations on you.
One thing that
I think that's
is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jalen.
I would just say that like don't be afraid to try new things. I'm the type of person, like, everybody is comfortable being comfortable. But the one thing that will help you take everything that you're doing to the next level is getting out of that comfort zone. That's trying new things, as far as even new majors, trying new classes, and also even trying new things like on campus and joining programs. And even if you are going to a PWI and you're the one person on campus that is Black, going and talking to that, that person of that other race and having those type of conversations, that's what makes you, that's what elevates your game. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's what I would say. Just don't be scared to get out there.
I was gonna add to what Milo said. I like what he said about it's okay if you have to take an additional semester to finish, because I think that's one of the areas that I went wrong. I thought it was just so important to graduate in 4 years. Like, I would accept some grades, like maybe a C- or something, and I could have dropped the class to help my GPA, but it was like, no, I need the credits. I was more concerned about the credits just so I could graduate on time. And then another thing, like if you do start freshman year and you're kind of on the fence about what to major in, it would also be a good time to take like some easier classes or exploratory classes, because that can help you start out with a strong GPA. So just like we're encouraging our freshmen now, like to get their GPA up now freshman year, so they're not struggling senior year to raise their GPA up. If you start freshman year, maybe take some easier courses, and you can start with a really strong GPA, and then you'll have that to lean on.
I would say one piece of advice I would give my younger self is to connect with people of the interests, of the major interests that I wanted to go into, to support me through those years. Being an accountant, I switched from an accountant to marketing, and it was only because like it wasn't clicking fast enough for me and I wasn't feeling as confident. But I think if I would have connected with more accountants and like did my due diligence to like network more in that industry, then it would have clicked better for me, and I would have, had the support to stick it out. So.
Was that
I would add my last advice some of it was kind of already spoken about, I think Erica mentioned, but explore the international exchange programs. That's definitely something that in retrospect I would have done. Just again, I was a senior as well by the time I realized that some of the students were doing these programs. So definitely explore that. I think Lawrence is absolutely right. Get ready now. And a lot of schools will even have a summer program leading into your freshman year. So you can actually go and move on campus and take a class and get really ready and comfortable. And then the last thing I would say is in the selection process, go on college tours. Like, don't just say, oh, my aunt went to this school, or I have a cousin who went to that school, so that's the one I'm going to. Take the time and go on at least 2 tours where you can tour HBCU schools or tour Big Tens or tour small schools, whatever the case is, but take the time to go and visit. And when I was on one of the college tours, I remember one of the instructors said, if you can safely take a few minutes away from the group, away from the tour, and like just envision yourself on that campus and say, can I live here? Because essentially you're moving, right? You're going to live there for the next at least 4 years, maybe 5. So if you can steal away from the group for just a few minutes, and I actually did that, and that helped me make my decision about the University of Iowa, because the campus is just absolutely beautiful. But when you can steal away from the group a few minutes and look around and say, okay, can I really live here for 4 years? That's an important part of your decision.
One thing that's burning me is that when it comes to selecting classes, if there's something full, go straight to the instructors and ask if you can join, because most of the times they'll let you in.
Okay, was that everyone?
I guess I'll just throw out my last little piece of advice.
Yeah,
that's okay. Now, and this real quick. They say it was a quote that somebody told me. They said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Meaning that basically is like what you're doing, the best investment that you could ever make is on your education. So make sure y'all put the energy, the effort, all of that into this. Make this the best decision that you can, but don't think that you can't reverse and make a better decision for yourself. But always invest that energy into you and your education and getting yourself to the next level.
Right. Now, was that everybody? Did everybody get a chance to speak before I close? I just want to make sure. All right. So thank you. Y'all gave some really good advice, and actually y'all gave some advice that will be in other discussions happening this week. So actually tomorrow we have a discussion talking, it's called Make It Make Sense. So what do you need to consider when trying to decide if you're going to stay in state, go out of state, do a 4-year versus a 2-year? If you're going to do maybe a trade school versus going straight into the workforce. So we're going to talk about that. Another topic is even just the transition from high school to college, how that affects your mental health. How do you prepare for that so it's not such a shock to your system? And then on Saturday, we're going to conclude with Mrs. Boyd coming to talk about the money, right? So I heard a lot of people saying Fannie let it off with the taking on a lot of loans and how that can affect you negatively later on in life. She's going to start explaining to us how you can look for the money prior to getting to college, but even the money you need to stay in college after that freshman year. I know a lot of you are having to find new scholarships that you didn't have for the next 4 years. So we're going to touch on all of that. But thank you all for joining. I appreciate you. I'm sure our students appreciate you all sharing your valuable experiences, and I hope that it does help them as they're getting ready, or some of them are getting ready for decision day on May 1st. So thank you. I'm gonna take everybody off mute. We're gonna stop recording. If y'all wanna say hi to each other, because I know there's some people in here who haven't seen each other in a while, so go ahead and